Well, welcome to Movement 102. I'm Katie Griffin.
And I'm Jenna Zubella.
This, for those who don't know what this is, we're going to talk about the effects of vision on movement and physical development. Hopefully you have watched Movement 101, which Jenna presented last year virtually with Colleen Kickbush, our coworker. If not, we'll kind of, it helps a lot if, you don't necessarily have to have watched it, but it does help a lot if you did. So we're going to get started. Jenna can talk a little bit about herself.
So my name's Jenna. I'm a physical therapist. I've been working for about 6 years with kids with vision loss. And I'll let Katie introduce herself.
I'm a teacher of the visually impaired, and I'm an orientation and mobility specialist. I have a bachelor's in teaching children who are visually impaired and teaching children who have mild to moderate disabilities. I have a master's in orientation and mobility. I worked for 5 years with just kids with autism, and I've worked for 12 years as a TVI and an orientation mobility specialist. And I've worked for 6.5 years in the birth to age 6 age range at Vision Forward. It's been a wonderful transition, so I'm very happy to work with that age group. And so just a little bit about kind of what we're going to go over today. We're going to talk about a little bit about orientation mobility, because a lot of people don't really know what orientation mobility is and how it fits in with vision. I know a lot of people, when their child who is visually impaired gets to school, they maybe haven't even heard the term, or they have never even heard of an orientation mobility specialist before, which is kind of scary. And then we're also going to kind of talk about how that overlaps with physical therapy. We're going to talk about the relationship between visual accommodations and movement, and how that plays into vision therapy and orientation mobility. And then
we're going to talk about the importance of head control and how it drives movement, and then why it is harder for kids with visual impairments to learn to walk. So we'll go over all of that, and we have some examples of activities to do. So hopefully our videos get working, and then you guys will have some time to play with some stuff up here and come up with an activity for a child.
All righty. So first thing, what is orientation mobility? And unfortunately, some children, they go into the school system and they've never heard of an orientation mobility specialist before. I know a lot of school systems have never heard of an orientation mobility specialist before. Sometimes we show up in an IEP and they're like, what are you? They scroll down in the list of professions and we're not even listed there. But we're a profession that works exclusively with children who are visually impaired. We teach safe, efficient, and effective travel skills to people of all ages, from birth all the way up, to death, basically. Orientation. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Orientation refers to knowing where you are and knowing where you want to go. Mobility refers. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Woo. My mistake. Mobility refers to the ability to move safely and efficiently from point A to point B. So that's that mobility would refer more towards how you are moving, and orientation is knowing where you want to go and how to and where you want to be. O&M services for birth to 3, they will look different from, like, say, how a teenager would get O&M or an adult would get O&M. They include things such as body awareness. Where are objects in relation to your body? And that's where we usually start for, like, a baby. Like, where is the object on your body? Like, if the baby's laying down on their back, we try to get them to reach for things on their body. That's where we start. Where is my body in relation to the environment? Where is the object in the environment? So then we get them to look for objects on, once they find them on their body, where are they away from their body? And then where is their body in relation to their body? And then, we talk about body parts, and so forth. We also talk about like 1 or 2 step directions, directional terms, left, right, up, down, under, over, sound location. And we also, it's very important that we make sure they've had a good hearing exam, because that plays a very important part of sound location. If they don't have what's called binaural hearing, that can affect how well they can locate sound in their environment. We work on basic white cane, or AMD, which stands for adapted mobility device skills. And I'll go a little bit more into that later. And then we assist other therapies, such as physical therapy, with adapting and or choosing devices best suited for the child as well.
Okay, so this is kind of just a graphic of how O&M overlaps with physical therapy. So you have your mobility, which drives a child moving. So being able to crawl, walk, roll, reach for things, which then helps them start to learn orientation. So where things are, like Katie was talking about, in relation to their body, in relation to their environment, which then also encourages them to have more mobility and move around. And vision kind of impacts all of this. So they all kind of overlap together. So we're going to talk about some examples of how to work on all of them at once.
Or vice versa, without vision, that affects all of that too. So. All right. So vision can affect your motivation to move. So of course, how we work with children who have limited vision or no vision at all is very different from how we would, like Jen as a physical therapist, how she would work with someone with completely typically developing vision. So like it affects their because it affects their motivation to move. If they see something across a room, or don't see something across the room, that's going to affect their motivation to move. Their spatial awareness, where you are in space. If you can't see your relation to something in a room, it affects how you understand where you are in relation to where you are in the room. Where other people are in space. So knowing where other people are in relation to other objects or people in the room. Concept development through vision, understanding concepts of like what a chair is, what a table is. Vision affects that as well. You have to learn all those concepts through other senses, touch, hearing, etc. Motor learning.
So motor learning is one example that I think I used in the Movement 101 presentation was if you take a basketball and you shoot a basketball to a basketball hoop and you miss to the right, your vision is taking in that input that you missed to the right so that you can correct yourself to then shoot a basketball again and make the basket. The other way you can do it is through auditory feedback. So that's kind of what Katie and I do a lot of with our kids. Is if they're doing an activity and they are stepping over an obstacle, we might give them auditory feedback of, oh, you need to lift your foot higher so you can get over that obstacle so you can continue to walk. So we're giving them the auditory feedback versus the visual feedback so that they can then make those corrections. Another thing that vision affects is your balance. So I'm going to have everybody stand up and we're going to do a little activity. So I want you to start with your feet close together and then standing, and nobody's swaying around or moving. Now, if you close your eyes and see how much you move, everybody's doing pretty good. Now, if you lift up a foot to stand on one foot with your eyes closed, you guys might start to move a little bit more. And now open your eyes and try to stand on one foot with your eyes open. So you guys notice you move a little bit less with your eyes open. So your vision plays a part in your balance. So we have to accommodate that and make the other two factors stronger. So the vestibular and the proprioceptive input, that's kind of what I work on, is making those a little bit stronger to kind of overcome that vision loss. And then fluidity and movement. So working on how they walk. Are they walking with a wide base of support because they are not sure about their balance or not comfortable with working on walking with a more narrow base of support? Even standing balance, do they stand with a wide base? And then go to narrow. You guys can all sit back down too. You don't have to keep standing. And then just how they're stepping over things or walking. Are they starting and stopping a lot? Are they stopping at every obstacle and then step over it? So we work on that. Okay, so ways to move or work on head control. So I'm going to start with supine or on your back. So you can work on head control a lot of different ways, but this is kind of the first one to start with. So you're going to start in a supported position with their head on the back, on the floor in front of you, and then you can start working on skills of like reaching over, up ahead, up above them, to an object of desire. So Katie's going to talk a little bit about the visual part of that, and then we can show you guys a couple pictures of ways.
So what we'll do is we'll take you kind of through like each level of like progressive development for like from like a baby and onward physically, and we'll go through like how you can kind of motivate them with like very limited vision, with using the vision they have to kind of build their physical skills. So like Jenna will take you through the physical part, and I'll take you through how you can motivate them with their vision. So like she's talking about supine, laying on their back. So what you can do is we have I'm gonna go to the pictures. Yeah.
So this is a young boy that's working on head control, who also has a cortical visual impairment. So you can see he's older too. So we go back to these positions too. You don't have to keep, once you do one, you can go back to it. You don't have to keep progressing. So the way he's working is he's on a wedge that we have down there, and to bring him up a little bit because he tends to extend his head back because of his preferred visual field. So we're bringing him up so we can work on keeping a chin tuck, which is a developmental milestone that you want to work on, is keeping a chin tuck so that they can sit up and then their head's not going back really far and losing their balance. And then he has a green is his preferred color. So he has a green lighted ball that's you can use like on a dangle bar that's over top of him. And he's working on tracking it as well as starting to work on reaching up to touch it and locate it. So those directional skills.
Yep. And we also have things like pom-poms. So if they, he has what's called a cortical visual impairment. So maybe like if, for example, I know you guys talked about that movement one-on-one, you talked more about what a cortical visual impairment is and all that. So maybe if they're further on in the range and they like shiny objects more than lighted, you can always use a pom-pom and you can move it on and up or on and dangle that. We have a dangle bar right here that you can use, and you can hang this on it. If they're like more solid objects, you can dangle a solid object. We also have things like this, which is like, and you can actually, this is kind of nice because you can actually like kind of wrap it around the dangle bar, which is kind of cool. So that's kind of what we use in the supine position. The supine position is kind of nice because everything's hanging down. So and if you're trying to get them to reach, there's like a ton of things that you can do for that.
You can use auditory too, if you have a child that has no vision. So we have like some bells, that you can hang on there so that they can locate them and find them. We have the
Yep,
ball.
sound location. We have a kid right now who will do anything for the sound of bells. And so he loves like anything like this, or these. You can even hang these you can attach a couple of these together and hang these. And they can tap them. So.
The next position would be prone or on their belly. So you can also you can start on the floor if the floor is too hard for them to work on getting their head up. So pushing down through their elbows and forearms to lift their head. If that is too hard, you can increase the surface. So you can use a wedge, you can use pillows, you can use a big exercise ball so that they're increasing their angle. The higher you are in the angle, the easier it is to lift their head. So, and then you're going to use some sort of visual stimuli to then work on lifting their head. So we have the light balls again, the light cubes,
We have
anything that
these
they
which
like
are
looking at.
these are nice because you can change color, and you can change brightness on them. Which is because if you have a child, because sometimes the preferred color may change. So this is nice because then you don't have to buy an entire new device or anything. And these are of course the lighted balls that we were using in the last picture. Also, if there's a specific color or toy they like, and they're beyond like lights or shiny objects, like an Elmo or a Big Bird, you can use these as well to kind of draw their attention if you're trying to bring their head up or to the side, which we'll see in this next video.
Can I have Big Bird really quick?
Oh, yeah.
So if pretend this is a big exercise ball. I did not want to bring the big one today, but if they're on the ball on the ground, you would want to start more in this position. So they're way far back on the ball so that they have to work less hard to lift their head. And then as they get better at lifting their head, you're going to bring them more on top of the ball and then working on lifting their head. So that's going to be a harder position. And then you're going to work down towards the floor. So then the next one would be working on the floor, lifting their head up. And then after that, then you can start working on the tracking of turning their head, reaching with one hand towards that lighted object or towards that even auditory object if that's what they prefer. So then the next position would be then working towards hands and knees position. So again, you're going to use the visual stimuli like Katie was talking about. And you're going to start with working on fixating or looking at an object and then starting to turn their head. So the next video that we have. Okay, so this is a little girl that's working on lifting her head and then turning her head to the left. So she prefers to stay facing to the right with her head. So we are working on turning her head to the left. So we're blocking her vision on the right there, and then she's going to go down, and then she comes back up, and she starts looking up too. So she's working, keeping elbows straight. So that's why she has the elbow mobilizers on to work on weight bearing through her hands. And then her preferred view is over here. So you saw, we can play it again.
So she keeps wanting to turn this way because that's her preferred view and her preferred way.
We actually
to turn
block
her
it
head.
here so that she can come back to that light on that side. Any questions on any of those so far? Okay. If you guys have any questions, just raise your hand and we can talk about them during the presentation too. Okay, so the next one is rolling. So with rolling, you're going to start.
Okay.
Big Bird again. So let's pretend that Big Bird is our child that we're working on rolling with. So you're going to find in that on their back, you're going to have them fixate on the object first, and then you're going to work on turning it to one side to get them to start turning their head to that side. Once their head starts to go, you can help them start rolling to their side, over on their side. And you're going to want to work on going both ways. And then once they get it on, once they're starting to go to their head, you're going to move the object up in front of them so that they can start tracking it with their eyes, come all the way on their belly. And then you're going to keep kind of moving it in that pattern to come back on their back. You can break, I would suggest breaking the movement up. So you're working on back to side, and then side to belly, and then belly to side, and then all the way. You can also work on that sideline position and working on starting to reach towards objects that are lighted or shiny or whatever their desired thing or desired visual stimuli is. Katie has a good one on the iPad.
Yep, we have, there's several different apps that you can kind of motivate them to gain their attention. There's one called Big Bang Pictures that gets movement. You can kind of change the color of the pictures. I'll show you here. For whatever color you want. And they can, if you're working on reaching, they can reach for it. Like if you're working on them rolling over and bringing their arm over to touch it, and that's part of it as well, then they are bringing their arm over to touch the iPad as well and activate it, because that's motivating for them. Then this is a good one, because when they touch the iPad, it does something. It's not just visual.
And they're getting, again, going back to that feedback, they're getting the auditory feedback of the sound that it's playing, or visually, they're getting, you can turn the volume down and they can get the feedback of the picture starting to dance.
Yes. And if they're at the CVI stage in the very beginning where, like phase 1, where sound is just too distracting, so you don't want them to have any sound, you can just turn the volume off so that when they hit it, of course, it's just visual, so that they're just looking, of course. And then there's something else you want to add it? Or?
Yes. So then going back to those feedbacks, you're going to want to give or encourage your child to continue to reach. So if they reach for an object, you're going to say, oh, nice job. That was great. You reached with you can start working on those directional and body parts. You reached with your right hand to touch the object or to touch the toy.
And we also have some other toys. We have this one. This is a favorite of some of our kids. It's a little light up duck. You don't have to use it as, I mean, you don't have to have it light up because it's great. It's a texture thing too. So if they don't have any vision and they just like the, soft things, a lot of kids like soft things. They like the textures. This is a great one too, because a lot of kids just like the texture of it. But if they like yellow or if they like lighted things, this is a great one because it lights up and it kind of changes color as well. But it's a slow change of color because we don't like the flashing because it can sometimes activate seizures. But this is like a very slow, gradual, and so it's a good one. Actually, I'll leave that guy on so you can see him.
So the next position is sitting. So you can work on sitting multiple ways. You can work on sitting if you're just targeting their vision. You want to work in the most supported position. So whether that is a wheelchair that they have, a height chair that's really supportive, a like a floor chair that they're sitting in where their whole body is supported so they don't have to work on those gross motor skills of sitting if you're just working on targeting vision. Now, if you're working on integrating vision with sitting, you're going to work on some different surfaces. So you can work on sitting on the floor, sitting on a bench or like a step stool, sitting on the floor on different balance surfaces. So Katie, if you want to grab the mat, that's the blue mat at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be, these are some tactile things that if they're sitting on the floor and you're working on those skills of starting to search for objects, you can put different objects, but you can also do tactile inputs. So if they have ones that are highly desired, like Katie was saying, soft, you can work on putting soft down where their hands should be so that they can get their hands down to the floor to help support themselves. If you're working on different sensory inputs, you can use, this is just a piece of like fake grass that has it a little bit different. So you can put different tactile things around them so that they can search and find and feel, and they can help you determine which one's their favorite. The other thing you can do is put them on sitting on different surfaces. So sitting on a pillow at home, sitting on a couch cushion at home, sitting on, I have a balance pad over there. It's just a little piece of foam that changes how you, your balance a little bit, it gives. So you can work on, if you want to challenge their balance a little bit more, you can work on there in that position. You can also work on sitting at a chair at a little table. And we have some pictures again on the next slide. So on the picture on your left, this child is working on head control again. So his arms, he's sitting on the floor. His arms are on a bench and he is working on, Katie has the lighted ball again here, and he is working on lifting his head up to look at that object or that ball and keeping his hands down on the surface so he can help support himself. Now over here, we've given a boundary to this child for his hands to find something that he likes to hold on to. He likes boundaries. So he's holding on to a pole here, and then that way his arms are down, and then he's working on maintaining his head in an upright position and then working on tracking right and left here.
All righty, we'll show you the first. The first one's really quick. We'll replay that one too.
It kind of comes up, finds that object. So as to continue to challenge them, you're going to want to work on keeping their head up longer and longer periods.
This one's longer, and he does a great job with the tracking because we're working on getting him to follow the ball. I use movement with the ball for this one too. All right.
Any questions on sitting? Okay, so the next one is standing. So with standing, that can be like a very uncomfortable position to be in because you're upright, you don't have your hands on the ground anymore, you're in an open space, you're not quite sure where everything is in relationship to you. So what we do is we work on giving some boundaries first. So you can start with their standing up at a surface or a table or couch, coffee table, a ottoman, and then working on keeping their hands down on the surface and then tracking or fixating on an object. Then you're going to want to work on reaching. Progressing that would be working on going towards no support surface. So you can start with one hand on a support surface and reaching to no hands and then reaching. And then to really challenge their balance, you're going to want to change the surface. So again, we have those balance pads over there that I use sometimes. Couch cushions are a good one at home. Pillows, big pillows of different, so you can use like a firmer pillow or a soft pillow. Softer is going to be harder than the firm pillow. You can use standing with one foot on a step stool to work on that single leg balance part of it. And then working on reaching. So we have,
These are some of the things that we use. Well, this is one for.
so we have a video. Okay. So here, Katie, I'll move just a little. So she found the lighted egg and now she's working on reaching it. And then she brings it back. So we'll play that one again. So she looks and reaches. So initially, too, with a lot of kids, they'll look at something and then when they're reaching, they'll turn away because it's a lot of work to keep your head or your eyes looking at the object to reach for it. So continuing to work on getting her to look at an object as reaching. So with her, we started with some supported or guided reach with her hands.
Yeah, and then so these were the eggs that she was using. They're lighted eggs. We get them, we stock up on them every year during Easter time when they sell them at Walmart. They're 3 something for $6, in case anybody's wondering. And then this is also a great one. We use these a lot with a child who is completely blind at our center. You can shake these and use them for sound location. And then he'll reach for these, a great sound tool. And then, I mean, they don't have to be completely blind. I mean, you can use them for kids that aren't either. I mean, you can use them for kids with vision as well. And then we also have finger lights, which are great. These are, but you can use them with these or without them. They're meant to be taken off. And then, but yeah, these are great little like smaller lights. You can also put them in things, in like balls and stuff, to work on like reaching skills. And also they're great for getting them to like pay attention to their fingers and stuff and like actually watch their hands. But yeah.
And then another one too with standing that I'll use a lot is the lighted ball. So
this is,
it lights up, and what you can do is you can hang the ball. If you use elastic, you can tie it on the top of it. And if you put in like a little nail above your doorway, you can hang it in the doorway and somebody can work, or your child can work on hitting the ball and then it coming back at them. So they can kind of start to work on that, progressing towards that throwing skill or catching skill. So they're starting to time out when the ball is coming towards them.
and this is a great feedback one, because like it comes back at you. And it's also a good play one. Like we'll have this have like a ball like this set up in the classroom for 2 kids to kind of
Hit back and
forth at each other. So it's good interactive play one as well.
Even for rolling on the ground too, if you're working on rolling balls, having your child sit and then you can roll the lighted ball back and forth with a sibling or with a parent or a friend or whoever you're working with.
All right, why children who are visually impaired struggle with learning to walk. This is a big one. And of course, it seems the less vision you have, the more they seem to struggle, which completely makes sense. One of them, of course, is fear of the unknown. If you've never seen something, you can't see what's in front of you. You can't see your surroundings. There's that fear, just like, it's like walking into an elevator shaft. When an elevator opens, if you can't, there's always that fear of like, what am I stepping into? Which is completely understandable. They have no idea what is in front of them. So it's kind of like working on helping them feel secure. That's part of it, of course. Motivation to move to an object or person in their sight. Without their sight, Kids with vision, of course, are motivated when they see mama across the room. They want to get to mama. When they see a toy they like across the room, they want to get to the toy. And so you have to find other ways to try to motivate them with sound and music and so forth. So that can be part of it as well. A huge part of it, though, of course, is the fact that learning to walk involves three systems: the vision, the proprioceptive, and the vestibular system. The proprioceptive system has to do more with your joints, knowing where like your limbs and your body are and everything. Like if you're carrying a tray, your joints are telling you that that tray is parallel to the ground. It's giving you input that the tray is not like this, it's like this. Even if visually your eyes are closed, I know that the tray is parallel to the ground now. It's not like this because of what the joints in my elbows are telling me. That's kind of how your proprioceptive system is. If you want to tell more about the vestibular system.
So your vestibular system is your inner ear balance system. So when you're moving through space, it's telling you where your head is. So if your head is up versus down like this, your vestibular system is telling you where your head is or where your balance is. So with vestibular system, a good one to stimulate your vestibular system is swinging, which some kids like, some kids don't. So it varies depending on how they want to work on the vestibular system. Rolling is another one that works your vestibular system because it's telling your head where you are in space. And then of course the vision system. Those three systems have a huge impact on learning to walk. Of course, if you don't have a vision system or if your vision system is impaired, the other two systems have to learn to compensate for that. And so so going back to that balance activity that you guys did, when you had all three of those systems working. So when you took away your vision, you had two systems left that were working, your vestibular system and your proprioception. Now, when you took away a foot, you're challenging yourself even more. So you have to work on ways to increase, when you don't have vision, ways to increase your proprioception and your vestibular.
And that's just when you're standing still. Now imagine if every time you take a step, you have to regather your balance again and again. And with each step, you kind of have to
where your body is, where your body and where your feet are in space.
Yep. And so I always call it every child, when you're first learning to walk, you have that like baby deer stage where fall, fall until you have that miraculous day where all of a sudden you just keep walking and you don't fall over. And that's why, like, for visually impaired kids, that baby deer stage lasts a lot longer, where they just keep falling. And because it takes so much longer for them to learn to readjust their balance with every step they take, because they're compensating for not having their vision.
So I'm going to go through the next couple of slides a little bit quicker, just so we have time to go play with all the stuff. Yes, question.
What's the typical development for the
Usually when a child, I'm not sure on the ages off the top of my head, but they kind of all start to incorporate together as a child starts to move. So the more movement you get, the more input you get through your joints and through your vestibular system. So that rolling, that side lying, that going into that 4-point or hands and knees position, starting to sit up, you're stimulating your vestibular and your proprioception system the entire time you're doing that. So it's constantly developing as your child is developing, and it's constantly changing as your child's developing. So with kids with visual impairments, sometimes they have that fear, like Katie was saying, of fear of movement, fear of the unknown. So they don't develop that system as rigorously as a child with typical development would. Okay, so with movement, with mobility and orientation with movement, you can work on this by working on crawling towards a lighted object or Christmas lights. Sometimes we like to tell parents to like mark their child's bedroom at the house with like a lighted object, or if they have like a shining object, to mark the doorway or a tactile input there, so that the child can start to learn orientation through their house of crawling or walking towards the door, their bedroom. We can use high contrast for climbing and crawling. So making sure that with marking things, you're using like a tactile marker or that high contrast on the floor. So if they're crawling over something at your house and you have cream color carpet, make sure that the thing that they're crawling onto is a darker color. So like that dark blue or a black. You can even use like a sheet or a dark sheet too to cover something that's lighter to give that high contrast to it. And then directions, starting with the basic directions of right, left, front, back, as well as like tactile cues. So if you're having a child work on turning to the right, I might tap their right shoulder and say, turn to your right, so that they start to understand that that's their right versus their left.
You can use switches as well. Jenna and I share a student where who's nonverbal, and we have a left and a right switch. And she can tell us left or right, or we tell her which way are we going to turn. We can say left or right. That's another way to communicate.
So here's another video of a child. He's working on walking, and he's very motivated by lighted objects, as well as his wheelchair that's in front of him. So we actually set the lighted cube on top of his wheelchair, and then he's working on going towards that. There you can see, you kind of saw it. And then he's going to start moving towards it. And as he's going, you can do one of two things. You can either leave it at that set distance, and then once he gets there, he gets the reward of being able to play with that lighted object for a little bit. Or with him, because we're working on increasing the distance that he walks, we start with it closer because that's where he sees it best, and then we're slowly moving it back on him, so he has to walk further.
Yep.
And I think you guys saw in the first Movement 101, there was some other videos of like a hanging lighted ball that the child was turning towards and working on walking towards it. And I think he goes around that ball a couple times.
All right, stairs. All righty. Some adjustments that can be made for the stairs. Start with crawling and climbing up, and climbing up the stairs. A great way to help with contrast is marking the edges of the stairs. There's bright colored tape. There's this preferred color that they're drawn to. You can get them in all different kinds of colors. So you can mark them in red, mark them in yellow, to help with the edge of the stairs, to make sure that there's a clean definition for each step if necessary, or you can even mark the riser if they have issues with seeing that as well. You can start with smaller steps, like maybe there's 2 steps that go up from your garage or up from your front porch or something, and then work up to like, an entire set of stairs that go up from your first to your second floor or something. Railings help with support, but they also can give you good clues. A lot of time there's like, when you're in like buildings, there's like a tactile cue where the first step is going to be. So it tells you, someone who is visually impaired, like, oh, the first step is going to start. Or likewise, when you're on the landing, it tells you, oh, the first step is coming up. So those are good cues for somebody with vision loss.
So there's, I think that's all those stairs.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last thing, and then you guys are gonna get to do some playing and exploring with the things we brought, is just talking about adapted mobility devices.
Oh,
So
I-
Katie has a couple examples here.
Yep, I brought the traditional device that most people are familiar with. It's the traditional white cane. This is a kiddie cane because it's for a little kid. This is what most people think of when they think of a mobility device. But some kids can go straight to this, which is great. But some kids need help either with support with learning to walk, or just support in general, which is completely okay. I think a grand majority of our kids need something before they go right to a white cane, I would say. I'm looking at Tina because she's the other O&M I work with. So that's why I'm looking at her. And so I brought these. There's also another one called a rectangular AMD, which is right there. It's kind of a cross between these. This is the I cane because it's shaped like a capital I. It's kind of like a push toy a little bit, in that it kind of, you push it in front of you, except most of them have rollers on it too. But it kind of, it gives a cause and effect. It teaches the child a concept of a cane, except it has a wider path in front of it instead of just like, a cane just has the one point. So at their age, it doesn't give them much feedback. This gives them a ton of more feedback, and they can't ignore it. A lot of times when you give a kid a cane like that, they kind of just drag it behind them and it doesn't do a whole lot at their age. This you can't ignore. You're holding it in front of you. And so it's like, oh, I'm going to hit something. Yeah, okay, there it is. You have to kind of pay attention to it. However, it also is easy for them to toss aside, and then just kind of forget about it. So, and it's not, which is where sometimes this is like something that's very new. They actually, Tina introduced me to because she knows the woman who created this. But this is called a belt cane. It's what I found is that it's more ideal for kids who have more vision loss than for kids who have a lot of good vision still, because the kids who still have a lot of good vision tend to get very frustrated with it because it just gives them too much feedback and they're like, but I can still see. But that's not to say, it's not good for some of those kids. But this can help a lot with helped assisting them in learning how to walk. They recommended it like 9 months. And then they wear it all the time, and it gives like a constant feedback. They can sit down with it. They can even wear it on stairs, and it gives constant feedback, so they get used to wearing it around the house and everything, so that it's constantly, if it's bumping into things, they can basically go everywhere. So they're not tripping, they're not falling over.
They're exploring.
They don't have that fear all the time. They're kind of overcoming that fear. And they're learning to kind of be a kid, and just explore and have fun in their own environment. And then there's the rectangular one too, which is kind of like a cross, except that one is shaped more like a rectangular. That one's more lightweight than this, which is something I've had troubles with a little bit, because when it's lightweight, there's some issues with that. Sometimes there's a plus, sometimes there's a minus with that, but yeah.
We have a parent, Lacey, uses a belt cane.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so my daughter has
Mhm.
these 4. She uses the belt cane right now.
She actually just started walking on her own about 3 months ago.
Nice.
Belkin helped a lot with her confidence on exploring on her
Nice.
own for sure. Yeah, like, I mean, that was definitely because she has like low muscle tone, so
Sure,
it took her a while to get to walk, and the Belkin, I think, was what more like boost her confidence than anything.
Sure.
Would, like, I mean, before she would like walk along walls and everything. we
Sure.
would try to get her to, like, get her off the walls
Mhm.
or anything, and then once we started using it, she definitely like shot up from there, for sure.
that's
Um,
good.
That's
That's
awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
now she does phenomenal, now she explores anything
Mhm.
and everything with it, so that was definitely the thing that really pushed her to get out of her comfort zone.
Yeah.
and-
That's awesome.
Perfect.
That's good. I'm
Um,
glad to hear that. That's awesome.
so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna give you guys, I think we have about 15 minutes left. So
Mhm.
maybe we'll take about 10-ish minutes. And we're gonna give you guys the opportunity to come up with an activity for your child or a child that you work with.
Or no.
Using any of this stuff up here. So you can work on an activity that they're laying on their back, their belly, and just kind of come up with an activity, and then we'll maybe have a couple minutes if anybody wants to share their activity. Go ahead and get up and come on up. Who's gonna come up first?
Mhm.
Yes. I think I have a semi list on my computer at work, so I can definitely add that to the live binder, the shared thing
Yeah,
for the presentation. Yep.
Oh, something cool I didn't share were these stack Legos. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. This is something we could definitely share to live binders. They're these like Legos that like when you stack them, they glow. So yeah, this is motivating, especially
I
for like if
know.
you're working on reaching. We're trying to get the kids to like, it holds their visual attention, and then we're trying to get them to reach and like, to try to get them to like stack, and then it's working on fine motor too, because they have to like push down and but yeah, these are really cool. We accidentally came upon these online, and it was an accidental wonderful find.
So a couple other things we have up here too are some different discs. So these ones, if you step on them or squish, they give a feedback. They can get kind of annoying after a while. And then these ones are bells. So if you step on it, it gives a little ding. So we have these two. So does anybody want to come up and play with some things? Anybody?
We have this vibration tool thing here too, two of them actually, for kids who like vibration, who are motivated by that. We have quite a few kids at our center that like that a lot. So this is one of the vibrating like tube things. And we also have this, which you can play a fun game with. This one lights up. You can play Body Buzz, where you can touch. It's a game called Body Buzz, where like you can like touch.
I'm gonna
This
touch
is your
elbow.
elbow. I'm going to touch your elbow. Where's your elbow? And they have to, move their elbow. And of course, any elbow is acceptable, but like, I'm going to touch your fingers. Then you move their fingers. Where are your fingers? And they have to move their fingers. That's for like kids with really low tone, or even if you're working on body awareness for any kid, you could really do that. But
Yeah.
Question related to, going back to walking.
Yeah.
mhm,
Do you have any recommendations? I'm an O&M specialist, and
mhm.
I have one student in particular that is working on walking right now. And the student is very hesitant to walk. Would you recommend, any exercises or strategies to kind of wake up the vestibular system, before we do an O&M lesson? Is that recommended?
I would certainly recommend it. I would certainly give it a try. Yeah.
I would start with like a warm-up activity. So like if they like swinging, you could do like some swinging with them or even rolling on the ground. And then I've found with kids starting with like walking somewhere where it has like more defined boundaries. So be like maybe making like a squared off area and working on like finding a toy, or if they have a highly desirable toy, putting it at like the end of a hallway that they get to play with it at the end. And that repetition of, okay, we're gonna walk to the toy, we're gonna go find the toy, or making it like a game. So sometimes with our kids, I'll do like the coins in the piggy bank kind of thing. I'll put the coins on one end and we have to bring the coins down to the other end of the hallway and then put them in the piggy bank to get like feedback. And then we have to go get another one. We have to keep feeding the piggy and then going back and getting another coin and walking. But yes, any other questions?
How old is the student that you? 4. Okay. Does he have any sensory issues at all?
There are.
Okay.
I would also recommend working with OT, PT, whoever else
Ah.
that child sees.
As well.
Mhm.
I don't know about the PT perspective, but you can put the belt in, where a belt pain feels good.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's, there's actually pictures online on Safe Paddles of that. They teaching you shaking your head. Yeah. Of that exact same thing, of a kid wearing one with a walker and a gait trainer. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep. Questions, anything that you guys want to see a little bit more of up front? Come on up.
Hmm.
This up.
And these I get at the dollar store for around Christmas time. We stock up on them. Mhm.
Okay, so when you touch it, it plays.
Well, there's a
It's
lot of
gonna play through
music
the whole.
things you can
It's
do.
gonna
Does
play
he like
through. You can
music?
change how long it lasts on the thing, and then
Okay,
another
well, there's
picture is gonna come up.
there's music
and then you can
apps,
touch it again and it
there's a
plays.
Joy
Now,
player.
if you go.
So like
restart
there's
it here.
books, like you can put a book on a Joy player, so like you can hear parts of a
So
book.
and
Just
you
like
can
book.
pick, it was a one-time purchase. So
Okay.
there's different, you can
Okay.
pick out how. complicated if you
There's
wanna do
always like,
silhouettes,
yeah,
simple
there's different
lines or
textures.
really
Does she
complex
like,
picture. You can also pick
stuffed
what
animals
color
and
the
stuff?
background is and
No.
what color all the pictures
Okay.
are, so they can come up where it's
And then
all
there's, I
different
mean,
colors
there's
and it's a
always,
random color every time, or if they're,
like,
if you want just red. you
does
can
she like
pick red.
cars, trains?
You can also pick what
different
pictures.
Sounds like that.
So like sometimes I'll do like 2 or 3 pictures on it, and then
Okay.
if they want
Yeah,
it,
'cause then you
like
can
if they
always
want,
turn,
if you want to listen to the drums or
different instruments.
whatever.
I know a kid that
The other
likes
thing
to
you can do
bang
is
on the
change how long
drum.
the pictures are on there. If there's
We have,
no prompt or a
we have,
fewer prompt,
a cheap, like
and
little,
then if you have a child that motor
below
can't reach the
guitar.
screen,
We
you
have
can
everything
actually
that one of
get
our kids
a
gets
switch
just
adapter and you can hook it up to a switch so that the switch can be closer. You can use 1 or 2 switches on it.
Okay.
And
Oh,
if
yeah.
they hit the switch, then the picture goes.
I know she seemed to like a lot, but I was thinking about maybe like a small, like beginner ukulele. type
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that would be awesome.
If you were both.
Yeah.
Playing with person.
Sure.
Yeah, so then you just,
Yeah.
and it plays, and it can play
Yep.
a
And then
sound.
there's
or
like,
if you
there's
turn the
balls
volume
like
all the
this
way
one
down, then it
makes
makes
sound
a
of bells.
picture.
There are balls like this that make all
Yeah,
different
so
kinds of
is
sounds.
there
Like this is just one
where
sound.
it-
Um,
where they-
So this was.
Yeah,
something
so we
that-
have
uh,
one.
Yeah, you can find things like this that make all different kinds of, so I don't know, if they would like.
They're saying that,
Yep.
you know?
Oh, okay.
So if
Yeah,
tap
yeah.
in Little Bear sees here, you can change how big the picture is, how fast it's moving. And then you can select the color and all of that.
This is a different.
So it'll move across the screen,
Okay.
and then when they touch it, it gets bigger. And I believe it like sounds like when I, yeah, I think it's called Little Bear sees.